Hello, dear YouTube viewers, I hope you're doing well. Okay, so let's start our video. Back then, during my university years, I met Maya for the very first time. She walked into the lecture hall like she already owned the place. Bright eyes, easy smile, the kind of presence that made people turn their heads without her even trying. I noticed how quickly she connected with others, how confident she was in her words, how effortless it seemed for her to belong. In contrast, I was the quiet one, the kind who preferred to sit at the side, observe before speaking, and keep my thoughts mostly to myself. Yet something about her drew me in. She laughed at one of my awkward comments, and instead of moving on like most people would, she kept the conversation alive. It was unexpected, and in that moment, I realized there was something about her I couldn't ignore. Over time, that chance encounter grew into something more steady. We found ourselves sitting together in classes, swapping notes, and pulling each other through stressful assignments. Coffee runs became our thing, especially late at night when the library lights felt like they were burning holes through our skulls. There was comfort in her presence, a rhythm in the way we worked together. Still, underneath the laughter and shared exhaustion, there was something unspoken. Sometimes her hand would brush against mine when we exchanged pens, or she'd look at me in a way that lingered a little longer than it should have. We had our own inside jokes, the kind that made no sense to anyone else, and every time we shared them, it felt like a small secret binding us closer. I couldn't help but hope that maybe, eventually, she'd see me as more than a friend. But she never gave it a name, never allowed the possibility to fully bloom. And then came the mixed messages. One night she'd text me out of nowhere, long after midnight, pouring her heart out about something personal, trusting me with words she claimed she couldn't share with anyone else. The next day, she'd lean against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Around her friends, she introduced me like I was someone important, yet always with that safe word, friend. When she laughed about it, it felt harmless on her side, but on mine, it cut deeper. Every small gesture screamed something more, but every label she used erased it at the same time. I found myself trapped in a space I couldn't define, neither here nor there, too close to be just a friend, but never close enough to be anything more. It was the in-between, and it was slowly eating me alive. It happened on a Friday night, one of those casual gatherings where everyone brings a little food, someone puts on a playlist, and the conversations weave between laughter and gossip. The room was warm, lit by fairy lights strung along the wall, and I found myself seated next to Maya on a worn-out couch. It wasn't unusual. We always drifted toward each other in these settings. She was chatting easily, her laughter blending with the music in the background, and I felt strangely at peace, almost as if we were in our own bubble. Then someone, maybe half-joking, maybe curious, leaned forward and asked the question that had been hanging silently in the air for months. So, are you two dating? For a heartbeat, I froze, not out of fear, but because I thought the moment had finally arrived. My smile crept in without me even realizing. I was ready, waiting for her to finally admit what we both knew but never named. The pause seemed longer than it really was. And then she laughed. Light, effortless, careless. "Oh no," she said, almost brushing the thought away with her tone. "He's just a friend." Her words sliced through the noise. The music didn't stop, the others didn't gasp, but inside me, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. My smile faltered, though I tried to mask it. Just a friend? After everything? After the long nights in the library, the whispered secrets, the way you leaned on me when the world felt too heavy? After the way your eyes softened when you looked at me? The words echoed in my chest like a cruel refrain. I sat there, nodding faintly, as though her dismissal hadn't shattered something fragile inside me. The embarrassment burned hot in my face. I felt exposed, as though everyone could see the years of hope I had quietly nurtured, now crushed in a handful of casual syllables. Rage simmered underneath the humiliation, not loud or explosive, but quiet, steady, like fire eating through wood. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. If she could downgrade me publicly, strip away everything we had shared with a laugh, then I had the right to redefine what we were on my own terms. So, when the laughter from others died down and the room waited for my reaction, I looked straight at her, calm and steady, and said, "Actually, she's my ex." The effect was immediate. A ripple of gasps, then muffled laughter, followed by whispers that darted across the room like sparks. The shift in atmosphere was palpable, people leaning closer, eyes darting between me and Maya, hungry for details. Maya froze, her confident smile faltering for the first time that night. "Wait, what?" "That's not true," she stammered, her voice cracking with disbelief. But I didn't rush to explain. I let the weight of my words hang in the air, my expression unreadable except for a knowing smile. The power tilted, and everyone could feel it. Suddenly, the girl who had laughed me off as just a friend was scrambling, her denial sounding less convincing with each second of silence. She tried to laugh it off, but the edges of her composure had frayed. For once, I wasn't the one left looking small. As the evening unfolded, I noticed the subtle shift in how people treated her. Friends who had been relaxed before now looked at her with curiosity, sneaking glances and whispering behind half-covered hands. A few teased her directly, playful but pointed. "So, what's the real story between you two?" Others watched her struggle for control of the narrative, their smiles carrying hints of amusement. I sat quietly through it all, observing. Maya looked increasingly uncomfortable, her laughter forced, her words more defensive. She avoided my gaze, though I felt hers flicker toward me in fleeting, frustrated glances. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. She had dismissed me like I was nothing, and now the tables had turned. Suddenly, she was the one on the defensive, the one fumbling for an explanation. But as I watched her fidget and falter, a different question gnawed at me. Had I gone too far? The satisfaction was real, but so was the unease. The truth was, I hadn't lied. She had been more than a friend in every way that mattered, even if she never admitted it. Still, labeling her as my ex was a deliberate strike, meant to wound, to reclaim my pride at her expense. And seeing the way her confidence cracked, I couldn't help but wonder if I had crossed a line I wouldn't be able to step back from. When the gathering ended and the noise of the night faded, I thought the story would rest there, that my words would linger only in whispers among our friends. But as I stepped outside, the cool air brushing against my skin, I heard footsteps behind me. Maya caught up, her face tight with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Why would you say that?" she demanded, her voice low but sharp. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? People are going to think." I cut her off before she could finish. My voice came out colder than I expected. "Now you know how it feels to be dismissed." The silence between us thickened. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, her eyes narrowing, her jaw clenched. For once, she had no clever comeback, no easy way to laugh it off. She stood there, frozen in the discomfort of the truth I'd forced her to taste. And in that moment, the balance between us shifted permanently. I no longer felt like the one chasing, waiting for scraps of affection she dangled in front of me. I had drawn a line, and she knew it. The days that followed stretched longer than they should have. My phone stayed quiet, no buzzing notifications, no late-night confessions that once filled the silence of my nights. At first, I told myself I didn't care, that the silence was proof of my strength. But in the stillness, I felt the ache of her absence. I caught myself glancing at my phone more often than I'd like to admit, waiting for her name to appear, even though I swore I wouldn't reach out first. Pride built walls around me, and I refused to be the one to break them down. Meanwhile, her presence lingered in other ways. On social media, her posts began to change. Carefully chosen pictures of her smiling with friends, captions dripping with confidence, outings documented as though she were living the best version of her life. To anyone else, it might have looked genuine, but I could see the cracks. The timing, the staging, it was too precise, too intentional. It felt like a performance directed at me, a silent declaration. "See? I don't need you. I'm fine." Still, the emptiness between us grew heavier. What we once had, messy, undefined, yet full of unspoken closeness, had been replaced by distance, by silence that screamed louder than words ever could. Then, one afternoon, out of nowhere, a message appeared on my screen. Dinner at my place. Family only, but you should come. It's my birthday. I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was suspicion. Why invite me now, after weeks of silence and carefully crafted indifference? Why reach for me in this way? I typed out a refusal twice and deleted it both times. But curiosity gnawed at me, tugging at the part of me that still cared, the part that remembered her laughter in late-night cafes and the way her voice softened when she trusted me with her fears. As much as I wanted to pretend I was past it, I wasn't. Not completely. So, against my better judgment, I typed back a simple, "Okay, I'll come." I hit send, already feeling the weight of what I had agreed to. A small family dinner. Her birthday. Walking straight into her world, into the space where her guard might be thinner, where truths might slip through. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I couldn't resist finding out. When her birthday finally arrived, I almost convinced myself not to go. I sat in my room staring at the clock, thinking of excuses, drafting texts I never sent. But something kept pulling me toward her invitation, a mix of unfinished business and curiosity I couldn't smother. By the time I stood at her front door, gift in hand, I already knew the night would leave a mark. Maya opened the door, dressed neatly but not extravagantly, her eyes betraying a flicker of surprise when she saw me actually there. For a second, her lips pressed into a thin line, then curved into a polite smile. "You came," she said, almost like she hadn't expected me to keep my word. Inside, her family was gathered in the warm glow of the dining room. Polite greetings passed between us, handshakes and nods, the standard rhythm of hospitality. Then I met her mother. Mrs. Rahman was gracious in the kind of way that made you feel instantly welcomed, as though you belonged even before you'd earned the right. She clasped my hand warmly and said, "We've heard about you," with a tone so gentle it almost disarmed me. I wondered what exactly Maya had told her. Dinner began with casual conversation, small talk about studies, work, the weather, safe topics that filled the air without saying much. Yet beneath the flow of words, I felt the tension. Maya and I sat across from each other, pretending to be casual, pretending this dinner was normal, when both of us knew it wasn't. Every time I caught her glance, she quickly shifted her eyes elsewhere, as though even a second too long would reveal something she didn't want exposed. It was Mrs. Rahman who gently steered the evening into deeper waters. She turned to me with a curious smile and asked, "So, how long have you two known each other?" Her tone was innocent, but her eyes carried weight, as though she was studying more than just my answer. I hesitated only briefly before replying. "Since university. We've been through a lot together, late nights, exams, too much coffee," I said lightly, careful but honest. I left the words hanging somewhere between friendship and something more, deliberately avoiding labels. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Maya shift in her chair. She forced a laugh, quick to add, "Yes, he was always just a really good friend." Her emphasis on just hung in the air like a warning, as if she needed to control the narrative even here. Her mother didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at Maya, then at me. The silence stretched long enough that Maya grew visibly restless, fidgeting with her fork. Then Mrs. Rahman's gaze settled on me, steady and knowing. A smile curved at her lips, not broad, not obvious, but soft, deliberate, the kind that said more than words ever could. It was the kind of smile that acknowledged the truth, the one Maya refused to name. In that moment, I felt seen in a way Maya had never allowed. Her mother's silence was not ignorance, it was recognition. She understood the closeness, the bond, the unspoken things that Maya dismissed with a single word. And through that small smile, she told me without speaking, "I see it. I see you. I know." Maya, sensing the subtle exchange, grew increasingly unsettled. Her laughter came too quickly, her comments too sharp. She tried steering the conversation away from me, but Her mother kept drawing me back in with gentle questions about my life, my family, my ambitions. Every time she did, Maya's frustration deepened, though she tried to mask it. I noticed the difference in how her mother treated me. Subtle warmth in her tone, extra care in her attention, as if she wanted me to feel that I belonged at this table. And it struck me. It almost seemed like she wished things had worked out differently, that whatever Maya and I had been, or could have been, was not something she dismissed, but something she quietly respected. As the evening continued, I realized Maya wasn't just battling me anymore. She was battling the reflection in her mother's eyes, the silent acknowledgement that I wasn't just a friend, no matter how many times she said it. And that realization seemed to bother her more than anything I had ever said. When dinner ended, the table slowly cleared and laughter faded into the background. Maya busied herself with the dishes, avoiding me with careful precision, her movements sharp and hurried. Her mother, however, lingered. As I slipped on my shoes near the door, Mrs. Ramon joined me, her presence calm and steady. She walked me out, and for a moment, we stood in the quiet hallway, the air carrying only the faint hum of voices from the dining room. She placed a gentle hand on my arm, her expression soft but serious. "You're a good young man," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "Don't let anyone make you feel smaller than you are." The words hit me deeper than I expected. All this time, I thought my anger, my sharp reply at that party, had been about being labeled just a friend. But standing there, with her mother's eyes steady on mine, I realized it wasn't the label that hurt most. It was the dismissal, the way Maya had stripped away everything we had shared as though it meant nothing. What I needed wasn't recognition as her boyfriend or her ex. What I needed was dignity, acknowledgement that what we had mattered. And in her mother's quiet affirmation, I found exactly that. I thanked her softly, my voice catching, and stepped outside into the cool night air. But before I could leave, footsteps echoed behind me. "Maya." She slipped out, arms crossed, her eyes searching mine with a mixture of frustration and something that almost looked like regret. "Why do you always twist things?" she asked, her tone sharp but wavering at the edges. It wasn't a full accusation, but it wasn't an apology either. Her words carried the weight of defensiveness, as though she knew the truth but couldn't bear to face it. I looked at her, steady, no anger left in me now. "Because you never had the courage to say what we really were," I replied. My voice wasn't raised, just calm, firm. The truth laid bare. Her lips parted as though to argue, but nothing came. Her gaze faltered, slipping away to the ground. For the first time, she had no words, no easy laugh to dissolve the tension. She just stood there, silent, her pride and her vulnerability clashing in the quiet night. I didn't wait for her to recover. I turned and walked away, the sound of my steps echoing against the pavement. And as I did, I carried with me not the sting of her dismissal, but the image of her mother's smile, gentle, knowing, filled with an unspoken truth. For the first time, I felt closure. Not because Maya admitted anything, not because I had forced her into silence, but because someone who mattered had seen the truth I had carried all along. Sometimes, closure doesn't come in words. It comes in recognition, in the eyes that refuse to look away. And in that smile, I found what Maya could never give me, the validation that what we had was real, even if she couldn't name it. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to be spoken. It's written in the eyes that see everything. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe. Our channel Awesome Visual Story.